welcome everyone to the third of our 4 sessions. Tonight we are covering promoting your event, so as part of the Lincolnshire Heritage Open Days Festival. Normal housekeeping rules applied. I think most of you on the call have been to at least one of these events, so it's the same as please, if you could stay muted. If you have any questions, please pop them in the chat box. What I'll do is I'll go through the presentation first, and then at the end we'll go through questions in order that they appear, or you could just ask me. And a reminder that we're recording the session. It's only going to be shared with other organisations via link. Organisers via link, but your face won't be on screen because we're only sharing the presentation. Okay, so background for if this is your first time, so just a reminder that we are Heritage Lincolnshire. We coordinate the festival, have done since 1994, and as part of that we produce the county's annual brochure for it. We try and coordinate it. We get all the events posted online onto the national site. We're led by the Heritage Open Day Steering Group, the Lincolnshire group, which is made up of people from all across the county, including local authorities and history groups, and they basically take a big steer on what we do as a county. So the point of these workshops, as a reminder, is they're not just for Heritage Open Days. We've tried to design them that they will be useful to you as an organisation beyond Heritage Open Days. So, and we hope that that will be helpful. And obviously, much of the funding for them comes from local authorities that support us and the wider festival. So what are we doing tonight? Tonight I've split this into 4 main parts. So we're covering sort of before you actually start marketing, what you need to think about. We're covering why you should also do your own promotion, because obviously Heritage Lincolnshire does do some promotion. We're doing top 7 methods of promotion, so how what you can use, simple sort of tools and strategies. And lastly, we're covering my favourite bit, which is 3 free marketing tools you can use, which won't cost your organisation anything to use, but could make a big difference to the quality of what you're doing as part of your promotion. So before you start, so how do you actually plan a marketing approach? So we recommend before you do anything, it is worth establishing yourself a plan. It doesn't matter, it can be a simple one, it can be detailed, but basically we believe that planning is the key to success. Some of your organisations may already have a marketing plan or a marketing strategy, but if you don't, this is what you need to think about including. And bear in mind, this is not just for your Heritage Open Days event. We'll cover event plans in a minute. This is actually covering your wider organisation, and whoever's doing the marketing can use this plan to help inform and inform and clarify what they're trying to get across to the people, your audience, basically. So what's in a marketing plan? The first thing that you're always going to want to do is to understand your mission. For a site, a business, or an organisation, you will probably have some sort of mission statement. You'll have organisational aims, or at least an idea of what the point of your organisation is. It might be as simple as we want to conserve the site. Our special site, we want to conserve it for members of the public, we want to open, and we want to generate enough income that covers our costs and means that it stays on for future generations. That's quite a common one in Heritage, so it's fine if it's something like that. If it gives you some help, our aims at Heritage Lincolnshire, we are all about lifelong education, building conservation, and archaeological fieldwork and research. We're a local charity working to conserve the rich history of the county for the benefit of people who live and work in the area. Those are officially our organisational aims. That's what's tied up with the charity. So this is always going to go at the top of your plan, as it reminds you exactly what you're trying to promote and why. The second point is much more simple. You're just describing your services. So what do you offer? You might be a non-for-profit, you might not sort of make an income, but you will still be offering something. You'll be offering your site for people to come and see and visit. You'll be offering your knowledge if you're doing something like a talk. It's about what you're sort of why people want to come and see you. So that's what you're thinking on. Thirdly, you need to consider who your audience is. Now, it could be varied. You might say anyone and everyone, and we'll cover that in terms of events on the next slide. But it's worth just sitting down, get a group of you together. So if you have sort of leads at your site, and have a think about who your audience is, because not all audiences are going to be suitable for you. I'll give you an example. If, for instance, you were a National Trust property, so they are trying to, open it up to as many people as possible. But one of their core audiences, or one of the people they tend to appeal to, because they're all about conserving for the future generations, is they are very keen on marketing to families. And the reason for that is because one of their strong beliefs, having worked there myself, this is what I'm told, so this is what we were, told to consider whilst we were there, is the fact that the children of families are kind of the next generation. They are part of the wider aims of the National Trust, which is to try and keep these places, these special places, special for all time. So traditionally, heritage sites especially are associated with retirees, generally people who've got time on their hands who have an interest in history. But the National Trust were always quite progressive with the idea of saying, well, actually, we also need to attract younger people, because if they have no interest in heritage from a young age, then it's going to be increasingly difficult to engage them later on. So that's an idea of, it's an example of what the National Trust do. Now, that might not be your audience. You might actually think, well, actually, we want, we're quite mature. The things we deal with, the topics, the subjects, the kind of people we want to engage with us do tend to be people who are retired or people who are in education, things like that. But that's going to affect how you're actually doing your marketing. So, and to give an example, if you are trying to attract young families, you might be looking at marketing to places like Mumsnet, Facebook, because you're marketing to mums and dads looking for something to do with the kids. If you're marketing to an older generation, they might not necessarily have much to do with social media, so they might prefer more traditional methods of marketing. So they like seeing an advert in a newspaper, or a brochure, or word of mouth especially. So that's what you're thinking on. So you have to bear in mind that your audience will be receptive to different styles of marketing. So fourthly, the 4 Ps, position, promotion, place and price. Where do you want to position your marketing? So placement is key to attracting the right audience. And this is what we've just described when we said, where do you want your marketing to appear? You need to have a think about it and think about what you'd be comfortable doing. So do you have somebody who's quite sort of techie? Can they do something like a website for you? Do you have somebody who's keen on social media? Do you want to position yourself on social media because that will have a different audience? So that's what you're thinking about with your 4 Ps. So it's mostly about that position and sort of how you promote, how you place yourself, what your pricing is. Number 5 is, what specific messages do you want to get across? It's really important as part of your marketing plan to establish what your messages actually are every time you do a piece of marketing. You don't want to have mixed messages because it can look messy, it can confuse your readers, and once you've lost them, you've lost them. So the idea with this one is, if you're doing a marketing plan, have a focus on what it is you want to achieve. Know what do you want more people? Do you want the same people to spend more money? Do you want them to bring their friends? Do you want to attract people who might also volunteer? That's what you're thinking about with your message, because then that's going to affect your tone. It's going to affect how you phrase things. And lastly, how will you actually communicate? So which channels will you use? You can use a multitude of them, but you might want to establish what your primary, so I would recommend not going for more than 3 different channels. And what I mean by channels is things like, do you want to use social media? Do you want to use press? Do you want to use word of mouth? Do you want to use your website? It doesn't mean you can't use more of them, but if you focus on 3, you're not going to spread yourself too thin, because no matter what you do, it's going to require your input, and it's going to require you to essentially have to put time towards it and effort. So as people, I know you're exceptionally busy, you've got other things to do. So unless you have an actual comms officer who is responsible for all your communications, the likelihood is you're just going to want to narrow it down to the ones you're most comfortable with and go with that. So that is generally a marketing plan. Now, bear in mind what we've spoken about here, these are general principles which you can apply to your marketing plan for your organisation. So you can apply some of them to events, which we'll go over in a minute. But the idea is before you start anything, before you start marketing your event, consider putting yourself together a marketing plan for your organisation. And then what that plan will do will inform future communications. So it's a long living active document. Keep it updated, keep it under review, make sure that it's still relevant for what you're doing. And make it sort of an interactive document, and make sure that everyone across your organization has a copy of it. So because everyone will be promoting you, whether it's actually directly promoting you, so you know, face to face, your volunteers on site talking to people, or whether it's the person actually sat behind the screen sort of producing the posters, producing the website, producing the social media. You know, it shouldn't be too complicated. You should aim to have it no more than one A4 piece of paper. But if you cover these 6 things, you'll have a pretty solid idea of what your marketing should look like, and that will help inform you then when you're doing future marketing strategies. So what does this look like? You've got your marketing plan. What does it look like though when you're trying to do an event marketing plan? Now, as I say, this is different. This is a level below the actual main marketing plan. But what you'll see is some of them are very similar. You'll see sort of similar points that you'll have to cover for your event. So the first one, instead of mission, what we're looking at is what do you actually want to achieve with your event? So if this is your HODS event, what is it you want to do? Most people, it will just be a case of attracting new visitors to the site. However, you might also want to promote a project you're working on at the same time. Do you want to fundraise through donations? You know, what are you wanting to do? You're hosting a HODS event. Have a think, why are you hosting that event, and write it down. You don't have to go into great detail, just have it at the top, because that will then inspire the rest of your marketing towards that event. So number 2 is pretty simple. What are you going to offer? Because if you are doing a piece of marketing for your event, as a bare minimum, you need to know what you're going to put on your promotional materials for that. So it's all very well saying, well, we're going to have an open day, but you'll see that most of the promotional items that I'm going to be talking about today, it needs you to have an idea, even if it's just a paragraph like what you've supplied to us for the booklet. People want to know what's on offer. They want to know why to come to your event. So have a think about that, and have that, even if it's just bullet pointed, you can then include that on your promotion materials, and that will help hook your audience in. So your audience will read it and go, actually, that sounds really exciting. They'll be more likely to come if they know what's happening than if they just know what the title is. Number 3 is, who do you want to attract? So again, this is all about audience. So with events, we tend to say, oh, anyone and everyone. But if you can specify, that will actually help you enhance the style of marketing and where you might choose to place it. What I mean by that is, so we want loads of people to come to our event, but we're hosting an event at the bunker, at Whole Beach Bunker for Heritage Open Days. That's one of ours. Ideally, we're very restricted on what we can do at the site, so we try and add something different every year. However, we're under no illusion that our event is more or less the same every year. Even though we encourage other people to do something different, we're very restricted on what we can actually do at the bunker. So we tend to, it's popular enough that we do the same event every year. So for us, although we want to attract enough people to fill all those slots, we're particularly interested in attracting new visitors, because we know we don't want to disappoint visitors that have been before and seen it with exactly, or more or less exactly, the same event. So for us, we want to attract a large number of visitors, but we want them to be new to the site, because that's what benefits us. So I hope that puts it into context for you. And that will help us then decide where to advertise. So because or what to actually write in our advertising. So we might actually hint at the fact that it's the same event as last year, just use slightly different language to say that the event is back, etc., etc. So that helps with that. Number 4, do you have any concrete ideas of where or how you want to promote your event? Do you want to talk about it on the radio? Do you want to get it in the newspaper? If you know where you want to market, that will affect what materials you use and what materials you send out. So for instance, if you want to get a piece in the paper, it's too much to expect the newspapers to pick it up from a Facebook post or a poster in your window. You'll actually want to do a targeted approach to that. So you'll want to do a press release because you want the papers to pick it up. That's an idea of sort of that shows you how knowing where you want it to be will actually affect what you do in terms of your marketing. So number 5, do you want people to know about the site? For this one, it's all about, do you want them to just come to the event? Do you want to encourage return visits? Do you want to celebrate reopening? It's not a bad thing to include that in your marketing, although we've sort of stressed that the idea is to have a clear message. The nice thing about sort of figuring out what your goal of the message is you can just thread that in. So an example of this would be if you're doing a Heritage Open Days event where you'll be talking about a future project you're doing, or you'll be fundraising for future projects, write that down, include it, you know, because you're setting audience expectations then. So if you're expecting to do some fundraising for your event, just a collection, you know, you can say, well, we'll tell you all about our event. So come to our event where we'll be celebrating our open day. We'll also be able to tell you all about our planned project, and we're doing some fundraising too. So please bring some change. That kind of thing, you can include it, and it just helps set those expectations so you get the right response from your audience when they turn up. They're the right audience for you, and they're also responsive to you. Lastly is a simple one, and this one is all about how you're going to communicate. So we've already talked about sort of ideas of where or how you want to promote the event. This is where you actually write it down, and again we recommend you maybe aim for 3, more if you can, but if you aim for 3, that's a good number. It means you've got a widespread, so make them different. So it might be that you're very, very pressed for time, so the easiest way to do it is going to be do 1 press release, do make sure that everyone on your site knows about it so they can talk about it via word of mouth, and you're going to do a few social media posts, and then just leave it at that, and then that is your plan all set. You can add to it, you can change it, you can improve on it, but it's a good idea to set this up. So for an event marketing plan, you'll probably want to set this up 2 to 3 months before you actually your event is taking place, and that's because some things are time orientated. So things like press releases, especially, if you can get them out sooner the better, and then you can produce more if you need to. But that's a great way to get in. So that's the gist of sort of planning and what we'd hope you take on board before you even start your marketing approach. But you've got that sorted, you've got your plan sorted, you've got your overall plan, you've got your event plan, you know what you're doing, but you maybe need a bit of support and guidance on sort of what else Heritage Lincolnshire can do for you and what you can do to improve on that. So next off, we're doing why do you do your own promotion, and how will we actually help you? Because we will. Anyone who's been part of Heritage Open Days before, you'll know that we do a fair amount of promotion around the festival, but I'm going to talk to you about why and sort of how you can top that. So the key benefits of doing your own promotion, first one for me is always going to be control. So if you do your own promotion, you have complete control over everything from content to tone to the amount of time you want to put into it. Heritage Lincolnshire will always do some promotion of the festival. However, we have our own templates and our own ways of doing things like press releases. We want to promote the whole festival as well. So our focus will always sit on promoting the wider event. This means we will likely spend more time talking about new events or things which are different enough to pique the interest of regular festival goers as well as newcomers. Although we'd like to promote everyone equally, our time and the time of the media is unfortunately limited. So we can only really focus on the highlights to try and have the biggest impact that we possibly can. So if you do your own promotion, you guarantee that all the important aspects that you want covered are covered, and basically you've covered that base. Secondly, networking. So a lot of people underestimate how many connections you can make just by trying to promote your event. So promotion for me is always another form of networking. You're essentially raising your profile so that people will take notice of you, of your site, of your event. I'll give you an example. So radio interviews. You might do an interview with BBC Lincolnshire and mention that you're working on a project to restore a part of your site that was, say it was in use during the 1970s. Suddenly, you're getting members of the public that you've never interacted with before. They're contacting you to say that they remember visiting in their youth, they want to come to the site, they want to support you however they can, they have some stories to contribute. Alternatively, it might also stick in the host mind. So the radio host, we find this a lot with Heritage Lincolnshire. We're surprised by how much, if we do a piece on the radio, we're often then contacted for follow-up by somebody on the team. So they might contact, if we're talking about a project, we might get an email from them 6 months later saying, oh, just wondered if you'd like to come on the show again and talk about progress with the project. And the same is kind of true with press organisations as well. So newspapers are exactly the same. Newspapers generally, especially local newspapers, are always looking for what we call feel-good events. It's basically, unfortunately, there's a lot of bad news in the world. So anything that is positive, it helps balance that out. So if you sent them a press release, and they know that an event's coming up, if you haven't had time to send another one, they might actually keep you on the database and put a reminder that the event's happening, and they'll contact you if they have a space to fill. What we find happens quite a lot with Heritage Open Days events is people, we produce a press release and then they'll get in contact with us usually a few days before. It's quite unfortunately a short turnaround, and they'll say, oh, can we get in contact with this event organizer because we'd like to actually come and visit and do a piece on it. And that's great publicity. So you'll have basically somebody from the paper turn up on the day, talk to someone, have a bit of an interview, and it's more promotion for you. That's sort of an after effect, so bear that in mind. Lastly, experience. So I'm going to be completely honest with you here, and I'm going to say that I can't stress how daunting it can be the first time you ever create a press release, or if you sit opposite a radio presenter. It's nerve-wracking, but I promise you it gets easier every time you do it. As the person who is usually the sacrificial lamb at Heritage Lincolnshire, that if there's ever anything to talk about, it's usually me they ask to go and talk about it. Nothing to do with me, it's just everyone else is terrified of going on the radio. So as somebody who does that quite regularly, it does get easier every time you do it. So press relations is a really vital skill when you're managing things like a heritage fund grant that you've been given. Funders, bear in mind, will want you to publicise their support of the project. It's basic quid pro quo, so getting your head around promotion and marketing is really important, as if you are given a grant by a grant provider, they want you to tell people about it, because obviously it's their charitable work. They want to be well known about it. They want to be seen supporting these organisations and projects. As a follow-up to that, what I will say is I'm sorry if I've scared you with the idea of, radio interviews and press releases, but it's good experience to have. And if you are nervous, don't forget, you can always contact either myself, you can contact other colleagues at Heritage Lincolnshire. We've got a couple of other people who do especially press releases and radio interviews. And we're more than happy to support you with advice, or if it's a press release, if it's something written, we'll proof it for you. If you're a bit nervous about it and you're worried you're setting the wrong tone, you're welcome to send it to us. We'll have a look at it, give you some feedback, and you can either change it or it might be perfect. So yeah, do use us, because we are a resource and that's what we're here for. So on that note, what is included in what we do for you, and how can you take it further? So I'm just going to quickly run down what Heritage Lincolnshire, so HTL stands for Heritage Trust of Lincolnshire, that's us. So this is what we do as part of our normal promotion. So we produce the Lincolnshire Heritage Open Days Festival brochure. On a normal year, we produce 20,000 brochures for distribution across the county, as well as making it available for online download. Now, this year, we will only be producing around 5,000, with capacity for more if take-up is good. The reason for that reduction is just because of COVID. Not as many places are open, so we don't want to print more booklets than we need to. because obviously any sort of additional cost has to be absorbed by the festival, so we can use it in other ways basically. So we've gone for 5,000 with an idea that we'll print more if we need to. It's still quite a key way that people find out about the festival. Last year we had quite a few brochures actually ordered where people had them posted to them. You know, they like them. We try our best to make sure they're high quality and people sort of want to keep a hold of them. Second off, we do the festival press releases. Now, I've already talked about this, but every year we write to our media contacts. We have a long list of media contacts. We let them know about the festival. And although it's mostly about the general information on Heritage Open Days, we do try and include some interesting events, which, as I say, they tend to be the ones that are new or are a bit different. We do radio interviews. The BBC is usually kind enough to invite us to feature on their show. So we talk about the festival. They'll ask us about some things they've seen. We'll talk about some of our highlights. We'll send them a brochure in advance. We always do, so they can have a flick through and decide what they want to talk about. And they also actually like to visit events as well. So we help coordinate that. They have a brilliant show called Pirate Gold. If anyone ever listens to it, it's usually on a Sunday. And it's a team where before COVID, they used to go out and about, and it was a bit like, I've forgotten what the name was, but it's a bit like a treasure hunt, only it's without a helicopter. So they go by car, but the viewers ring in and contribute and help solve clues for them, and they have to try and get to as many places they can to find the treasure. So they always usually do a Heritage Open Days version. They did one last year even, because it was when the lockdown had been eased. So the likelihood is they'll probably do it again. And again, somebody who writes the clues will look through the brochure and they'll choose events across the county for people to go out, and we'll help coordinate that with the other organisers. Lastly, we also do social media highlights. So we post all the events on social media, predominantly Facebook, because that's our main event platform. We found it's a brilliant way to get word out. And what we do is we create the event as part of the Lincolnshire HODS page, but also link to you as a host. So you can share it and take ownership of it if you have a social media account for your organisation. Also, it's worth mentioning here that if you have chosen to commission extra services, we make sure there's extra social media focus on your event just as part of the package, and we'll guarantee some posts promoting it. But everyone gets their event put online. You get your own event page that's part of the Lincolnshire HODS page. And then, as I say, we'll link to it so you can post to it as you want to if you've got your own social media accounts. So with that in mind, that's what we do as standard. If you do nothing else, we will have done that for you. But if you really want to make the most out of promotion, this is what you can build on. So if you create your own press releases, we will essentially provide you with a template that you can adapt. So you can write your own fresh if you wish to, but if you've never written a press release before, we have a template for you. So you can use that, and we'll also provide you a list of press contacts for you to use as well. So rather than you having to search around and find who to email, we'll just give you a list of press contacts, and you can send them to whoever, everyone, just a couple, whatever you choose. Bear in mind that local newspapers in particular are always looking for those good news stories, so they'll be more likely to feature your press release than a generic one. They may also wish to send a journalist to visit you on the day. So if you get that out early, they'll put that in their diary. So if you can do it a month before, that helps them structure a little bit. And but do bear in mind that when they send a journalist, they'll tend to just call you the day before, because they'll have a slot in their paper they need to fill, and they'll want to fill it with something exciting. So yeah, do be prepared for that. If you've given us a press contact on your registration form, we will use that one as the one to give to them if they come to us about one of our press releases, but we'll check with you first to make sure you're happy for us to share those details. Next up is radio contacts. So again, BBC and other radio stations will often ask us to put them in contact with you, so they can interview someone involved with the event. Usually it's a phone interview, but if it's a really exciting event, they'll send someone out to you. If you get this opportunity, it's always last minute, but it is hugely impactful. So if you get a chance to be on the radio, I know it's scary, but if they contact you and they want to come out and sort of feature your event, if you can do, please do take the opportunity, because it will really promote your site. They have a listenership of thousands of people, because it's not just Lincolnshire. I know that the last time I was speaking to them, they even have people who listen in America. So, you know, if you want to get your name out there, don't forget, although they're talking about the event, people will hear about your site as part of that as well. They'll ask you questions about the general site. So use that as an opportunity. Lastly, social media. So we do recommend that you create and or manage your social media accounts for your site and link them to the Lincolnshire HODS accounts, at least for the event stuff. It makes it a lot easier for us to be able to promote your pages. So we will look for you. But I think the last year we set up all these Facebook events. Sorry, my Alexa has just started talking to itself, which is a bit creepy. Yes, so we will set up all your Facebook events. And last year, over half the events that we listed didn't have pages to link to. So there were organisations or events that didn't have a Facebook page. Now, it might be if you're doing a talk, that's fine, because you're not part of an organisation, you won't have a page. But if you are part of an organisation, seriously consider getting yourself a social media account, even if you just want to do Facebook and nothing else. It's massive for events, and we're going to talk about how much of an impact it has in a few minutes time when we talk about methods. But that's it. That's my main tips for you. So there you can see what we do, and you know now how you can take that one step further to get even more impact. So here we go now. I've sort of bored you to death with the information on sort of the background to this, but this is probably what you're here for. This is my top 7 methods of promotion. So these are the ways you can promote your event, promote your site, and we'll go through them, not in a huge amount of detail, but you can ask me more at the end if you wish to. But I'll just do a summary and give you some ideas to write down and think about which ones might suit your organisation. So top 1, I'm really sorry. I know there will be people who hate social media, but it has taken the top spot in promotional methods after 2 years of a pandemic. We now live in a digital world, and there's nothing we can do about it. More organisations have taken advantage of this, and the focus is really heavily on improving their social media presence, and it's had a huge impact. I have to say that our supportership, so if you would like an example of this, Heritage Lincolnshire, we have doubled our followers, at least on Facebook. Twitter I don't have much to do with, but I do a lot with Facebook. We've doubled it, and it's had a huge impact on our business, actually, the business side of the charity. So obviously we have to create revenue to break even, to make sure we've got money to keep the sites going. So we do things like online talks. We've done quite a lot of online talks where we do promotion on sort of anything from, we've done sort of Dark Tales of Lincolnshire to sort of the last Black Prince of Lincolnshire, to aircraft and aviation history. And basically we've done most of our promotion through Facebook, and we've had people from all over the world. We've now got followers in, I'm pretty sure we've now got followers on every continent except Antarctica, but we're working on it. But yeah, and that's all just from the last couple of years. People have been actively searching out digital resources. So with this one, I'm going to stress it again. If your organisation doesn't have at least one social media account, then set one up as soon as you can. Facebook and Twitter are the main 2, but if you prefer to have a visual presence, then go for Instagram. I saw in the chat that somebody asked about Tumblr. Tumblr is another social media platform, but it has declined in popularity. There are still people who use it, but it's no longer one of the big 3. If you want to go super modern, you can even look at things like Snapchat and TikTok. Are other social media platforms, and they're more about so TikTok's more about short videos, whereas Snapchat is about quick messages that delete themselves. So it's all about quick news. It's kind of exciting because you get something, and if you don't read it in time, it disappears. But I'll be honest, I don't have too much to do with those. I've watched plenty of TikTok videos. There are some museums that do some brilliant ones. The British Museum has a TikTok, which is quite funny. You know, it tends to be quite funny little comedy skits and sort of little tidbits of information. But honestly, at the moment, the best ones in terms of the most popular ones are still Twitter and Facebook, with a close follow-up from Instagram. The key thing here, though, is I'm telling you to set one up. If you do set one up, make sure you manage it as well. It needs to be actively managed, because just having an account, unfortunately, isn't enough to keep your audience engaged. You have to post at least semi-regularly. So we recommend 3 posts a day, but we realize that you're busy people. You may not have that much to talk about, but if you can try and get at least 3 posts out a week, that's a good starting point. And it can be on anything and everything. It can even be, you can recommend them to go and look at some reading that's related to your site. You can obviously promote your event. You can do multiple sort of promotional sites for your event. You can do Q&As with your volunteers, with your staff, whatever you like. It can be as short or as long as you want, but it has to look active, because if it doesn't look active, people drop off quickly in terms of engagement. So bear that in mind. And if you do have an event, if you do have a social media and you allow sort of volunteers to manage it, that's fantastic. They can do that. Just make sure you have a consider about what tone they use as well. So make sure you keep it professional and keep the focus on your organization at all times. So you know, you don't want to stumble into any faux pas, like anyone getting involved in anything political, or, you know, sharing a sort of inappropriate picture, something like that. So that's something to bear in mind, but it should be quite easy to manage. Just keep an eye on it. So secondly, here we go. We have press releases. So these are great if you have something big to shout about, but unfortunately they're not for everyday use. They're if you are wanting to celebrate something. They're short pre-prepared articles that you send to press organisations for inclusion in their publications. They only want newsworthy updates, though, so to put that in quotation marks. So what they consider as newsworthy varies week to week. It depends on how busy a news week it is, but if you bear this in mind, because if it's not something that they class as news, they might ask you instead if you want to do advertising, if you want to place an ad. So it's no good, for instance, writing just a general article about your site. You'll want to focus on something like site reopens after COVID closure, or special events celebrating Heritage Open Days, that kind of thing. So that's what you're thinking with press releases. So remember that Heritage Lincolnshire will always provide a press release template for you to use if you wish. Thirdly, having your own website. Now, this ties a little bit back to social media when we say that the world has become increasingly digital. You can actually now create websites quite easily for free, at a low, or even sort of, it depends on how much you want to put in. If you want a really professional website, obviously there's a fee to that, but you can do it for free, or you can do it at a low cost, and we'll cover a bit of that later. Now, the first thing people often do if they're searching for information about a site or an event is to Google it. So you can use it as your own advertising platform. So if you have your own website, what you put on there is up to you. You can have something on your general site, you can have something promoting your events, you can have whatever you want on there, basically, picture galleries, and they're quite easy to use nowadays. So modern website builders are designed, it used to be that you would have to have a qualified sort of IT web designer to do your web design, but so many companies now specialize in providing software that helps you create an easily adaptable website with having no formal training whatsoever. So and you know, it's worth noting that the more you put on there and the more people engage with it, the more exciting it is, the more often it will also appear in search engines. So if people are searching for Lincolnshire, you know, if you get lots of visits, it makes Google's special algorithm and other search engines, they use the same thing. So it means that it will bump it up the list, basically. So you might get more sort of contact that way. So bear that in mind. I'm just going to have a sip of my drink. I'm a bit dry. Okay, so point 4, this is blogs. Now, a blog is a website, if you've not come across them before, it's a website or part of a site that contains regularly updated content about one or multiple topics. So the term is actually short for weblog, So web log, which means to log information on a website. It's as simple as that. The content on a blog usually comes in the form of articles or individual web pages. Oops, sorry, gone back there. There we go. Sorry about that. So the content on the blog usually comes in the form of articles on individual web pages called blog posts. They've shown that websites with a blog actually have a 434% more index pages in search engines. That's all to do with engagement. So, you know, I talked to you about, I mentioned a minute ago about algorithms. Blogs are massively heavily engaged with. People like to read them. They are, however, more time consuming than some of the other suggestions on this list. So do bear that in mind. However, if you have the time, they have been proven to have a really good reach. They can help you establish a loyal readership. We produce a blog post. My colleague Jim Snee, he's also a writer in his spare time. So he's very good at what he writes. He's a writer, an archaeologist, and a historian. And he actually produces short blog posts for us, usually once every week, once every 2 weeks. And we were incredibly surprised at how well people responded to this. So we have people who regularly come back. So the hits on his blog pages are massive. And he basically just writes almost like an author, about 5 or 6 paragraphs, just a short little, very casual look at either an element of history or a series or things like that. So he does Lincolnshire's first and last, and he's done a lot of recently he's been doing prehistoric history and archaeology, which has also been popular. He's now up to something like 45 of them, and you know the readership is getting stronger every day. So you know it works. We've tried it ourselves, it works, but it just requires having somebody there willing to write it. However, once you're established, what I can say is, and you'll see on this picture here, so this is from the Heritage Open Days site, this is their blog. Once you become established and you get a few connections, you can actually save yourself some work by getting somebody else to write the blog for you. Now, you do have to be established for this because they have to know who you are, but you can ask somebody, either another organization or whoever you know, somebody who might have something to say that your readers will want to hear. You can invite them to write the blog for you. So, and then you don't have to write the blog, you just have to post it and obviously give them credit for it, but it keeps your readership fresh, it keeps sort of them engaged. So it's just an idea of something you can do. But I mean, you could start it as a guest blog, but the problem is it's then unreliable. So I would say this is something to do to enhance a blog that you already create. And what you can write about in your blog is completely up to you. You can write about the history of your site, you can write about a life in a day of a volunteer. You can write, if you want to, you can just write about how you got into role, you know, how you came to be here, how you got involved, but keep it short. You know, you're looking, again, if you write it in Microsoft Word first, you're probably looking at no more than a page of text, maybe a bit more if you really want to go into detail, but that's about the right size for a blog. Next up, we have the ever dependable mailing lists. So mailing lists are both celebrated and a dirty word, depending on your experience with them. And the reason I say they're a dirty word is there've been all sorts of scandals about mailing lists being sold. They still do that. So sometimes when you're asked if you want to join a mailing list, you'll see a tick that says, can we share you with some of our carefully selected partners? What that means is you're giving them permission to sell your details to somebody that they've done business with. They'll have their own standards, so you know they won't sell them to like a viral company. But if you're wondering why you're getting emails from companies you've never dealt with before, the likelihood is you've ticked somewhere to say that you're happy for a trusted company you have dealt with to share your details with their partners. So this is where mailing list becomes a dirty word. However, for a you know, for us as smaller organizations, people tend to have a much more relaxed and tender view towards them. They're really useful tools, and I'll be honest with you, you will be on a mailing list. If you're an organizer and you're registered with us on HODS, you're part of our HODS mailing list. So, and it's basically just terminology used to describe how you keep and maintain a list of email addresses and contact details for contacting, basically. So when you see our updates, our HODS updates, that's via our mailing list. Bear in mind, you will need consent from your supporters to add them to one, but free web tools like MailChimp can actually help you manage mailing lists. So we have moved on to mailing lists. We used to do it by hand. Since GDPR came in, we looked at all the available options, and we're actually now registered with MailChimp. Which you can either pay for, or you can have a free account, no problem. If you've got a small readership, a free account will suit you just fine. If you've got no more than 100 people, that won't be an issue. You know, they don't charge for that. But they're really secure. They're super secure, and they also add to every one of your emails a funky little interactive button that says unsubscribe. And that covers you for GDPR. So basically, as long as you've got permission to add, it means that if they then unsubscribe, MailChimp will do the work for you and will take them off the list. Now, why are mailing lists important? So the idea is that you're asking your supporters to give you their email address so you can keep them up to date with what's going on in your organization. Now, remember, this is a key part. Your supporters are always going to be the people most interested in the success of your organization. And as a sort of follow on from that, they'll be interested in your events because they like you, because they want to hear about you. They want to hear to support you in raising money or just with numbers and things like that. So mailing lists are really key. They're quite simple to manage once you, especially if you do use software like MailChimp. It's very easy to get your head around it. The only thing I would recommend is just having a quick summary of GDPR, so you know why MailChimp, if you use MailChimp, you know why it's doing what it's doing. If you don't use MailChimp and just want to use your own normal email address, that's fine as well. But I would recommend having a closer look at that GDPR, just because it's what's replaced. GDPR is the legislation that replaced data protection, and it's much more stringent about use of details. So the onus is on you that if somebody no longer wants you to use their details, or the details are no longer relevant, that's kept up to date. So, which is why we ourselves as an organization moved to using MailChimp, because that's what that platform is designed for. It helps, it means that it manages itself effectively, or people manage their own details. So that's me, sorry, going on a bit too much about mailing lists, but I just wanted to stress that element of it. 6, we will all be familiar with this. This is what I call the old school approach, but it's no less relevant. So this is direct marketing. It's a little bit dated now, if I'm completely honest, but it's still effective sometimes. So I've grouped point of sale and leaflets together, but the difference is, so point of sale is having things like posters and notices up at your site promoting your event. That relies on people being at your site. And if you've got a notice board, or if you've got back of toilet doors are brilliant places for marketing. It just means having a poster up. So if you're trying to promote an event, put them in places where people have to stop and look, because this is the downside to them. With point of sale, it requires people to not just look at them, but to see them. And there is a difference in that, unfortunately. So again, harking back to my National Trust days when I did marketing training, I was told that it takes no less than 12 times for somebody to take information in once they see it. So they have to see it 12 times. Sorry, they have to look at it 12 times before they actually see it. So it's not true of everyone, but that as a general rule is why you see quite a lot of marketing at sort of relevant places around sites like the National Trust, because it's just that constant reminder. So have a think about that. If you are using it, try not to overdo it, because although I say that they need to see it lots of times, instead try and have it somewhere that has impact. So as I say, back of toilet doors, behind the till point or on the till point while people are waiting for their change is really good. Anywhere where there's a sort of waiting area is a good one. You can also use things like A boards. So if you have one and you've got an event on today and you're welcoming people in, stick it outside the door, and people will see it as they walk past. So that's an idea of that one. Now, leaflets are a bit different. They're like handouts. You can either physically give them to people, and again, the likelihood is that will be on site. One of the things that somebody told me that was quite effective is if you have a leaflet and somebody buys something at your till point, staple it. So if you make sure your cashiers have a stapler, they can staple the receipt to a leaflet and give it to the person so that, it's a physical thing to take away. They're simple to do because you just, once you've got them, you just print out more if you need them. It's really easy. If you've got it, use it. But as I say, the problem is its effectiveness is completely dependent on people seeing what you're giving them. So I'm taking that in. So, but it's cheap, it's easy, it's something to do just as a sort of boost, I would say. But if you're using this as your core marketing, you might find that you're not getting as much impact as you would quite like. So lastly, we've got word of mouth. So I've put this 7th, but that's not because it's not important. It's more because it tends to be the forgotten one. Word of mouth, however, continues to be a big player on the marketing and engagement stage. So even with the impact of COVID, it's still the most trusted form of marketing, with most people trusting the recommendation of friends, family, and colleagues over any, and I mean any, branded marketing campaign. Many of you will have a host of staff and/or volunteers who will support your organisation. If you can get them to help you promote your site and events by telling their friends and family about it, you've already had a big impact there, because people will trust their opinion. So if they're supporting something and they say it's good, they're more likely to actually support it themselves, even if it's just sharing your social media posts. So if your volunteers and your colleagues follow your organisation on social media, we do. We're not forced to, but we've been asked by our organisations at Heritage Lincolnshire. We share the Heritage Lincolnshire posts. Maybe not every one, but certainly the ones that are interesting to us as staff, we just share them on our own posts. It's easy to do, you just click a button, share it, and it just extends that reach a bit further, because then it's getting into my network, my friends' network. So that's an idea of something they can do that's super easy. You can also tell your supporters. I mean, we talked about the mailing list. If you have a mailing list with supporters, there's nothing wrong with you asking them to promote your event for you. I know it sounds a bit odd, but literally we've already said that your supporters are your biggest supporters, surprisingly enough. So there's no reason you can't say, tell your friends, bring your friends, style it as a, bring someone new to the site that's never been before, help them discover. People, English Heritage did it effectively for years, where they recommended you bring someone. You have campaigns which are built about bringing a friend for free. So if you're already doing a free event for Heritage Lincolnshire, style it like that. Tell your supporters and say, bring your friend for free on Heritage Open Days, and you're attracting a new audience. And that's how word of mouth works. So that's a great one to do. So I said 7 points, but I've sneakily slid in an 8 here, because this one I'm treating with a pinch of salt, because I don't want you to think that I'm telling you to go out and get paid advertising. However, I thought I should probably include it just in case any of you do want to look into this. So we're not advocating you spending any money. We certainly don't spend much in the way of money in terms of advertising, other than just our normal sort of advertising streams. So this treat is a bit more of a bonus item and if you want to kind of thing. So paid advertising isn't for everyone, and if it's not for you, that's fine. If you don't have the budget for it, that's fine. There's nothing to feel bad about it. It's just another option if you have it. So if you do have a small budget, then marketing can prove to be a decent investment if it's done right. So rates will vary, but generally when people think about paid advertising, they often think newspapers, or they think, sort of getting a magazine, etc., etc. But actually, print publications tend to cost a bit more, especially the bigger ones. I know that Lincolnshire Live, for instance, I think their starting rate for like a quarter page is something like £450, which is way beyond the budget of most people. Have a think creatively, though, about other ways you could promote your event. So I'll give you one that people always forget. Parish magazines. A lot of parishes have a parish magazine. So it will be run by a volunteer probably, and they generally just look to cover their costs. But they take adverts. So we've advertised in parish magazines, and I know that on average it's about £15, which I know is still money spent, but if you say you've got a £50 budget, you could get advertising in 3 different parish magazines, or at 3 different times a year for that. You know, and if that's not right for you, then maybe have a chat with your local co-op, or if you've got a local supermarket. The bigger ones tend to be a bit different. But if you've got a small supermarket that's more local run, sometimes they have their own publications, so they might even feature your event for free if they're more community minded. So I am thinking more the co-op. It's not all the time, but it doesn't hurt to ask. So, you know, ask about it, ask if you could feature in their sort of weekly publication or something, and they might do it for free, or they might say you can put a notice up, whatever. So, but you don't lose anything by asking. As an alternative, we talked about social media. Social media ads are actually surprisingly affordable, which is why you see so many of them, I think. Facebook ads, for an example, they work very strangely. So they don't have a set cost. What they talk about is value for money with your budget. So it literally, you could spend £5 for a week. I think it starts at £5, so you could literally do £5 for a week of extra advertising, or you can spend 50,000. It doesn't matter how much you spend. What they try and do is they will try and give you best value for money for what you've achieved. So they tend to give you a report back in terms of click through and things like that. But if you have a budget and you want to spend it all, but you don't have time to go looking at different things, Facebook, I think Twitter is exactly the same. You tell them how much you've got and they'll do what they can with it, and you can decide whether or not, treat it as an experiment, and you can decide whether it's effective or not afterwards, because they will give you a breakdown afterwards to show how much impact you've actually had. If it hasn't worked out, it hasn't worked out, and you just leave it and you don't do it again. Or you do it differently next time. But it's just an idea. So, and as I say, I think I would be remiss if I didn't cover this, because it's still a very valid way of advertising your site. You are paying somebody to do it for you. You're paying somebody to use algorithms online, if that's the case, and show it to the right people. And I have to say that we've done it a couple of times. It does have an impact. We have found it has a positive impact, but we don't have the kind of budget where we can keep spending on it. So we tend to pick and choose when we use this kind of promotion. But it will have a positive impact. You just have to think about how you monitor that and how you balance it out to value. So coming towards the end of our presentation now. This is my favourite bit, where, as I say, you're going to have to bear with me because I will be waxing lyrical about at least one of these things, which is the first one. But what I'm going to talk to you about now is how to get a professional approach without spending a penny. So this is my absolute favourite thing on the internet. My colleague Hannah told me about this because she actually has a pro account for it. She uses it for her business. She's got a business as well as working for Heritage Lincolnshire. And she told me about it, and she said, oh, you know, you can have a go. They have a free package which you can use, and I am genuinely surprised at how much they include with their free package. So Canva is it was launched in 2013. I'd never heard of it, despite the fact it's been going for 8 years. I'd never heard of it. But Canva is an online design and publishing tool with a mission to empower everyone in the world to design anything and publish anywhere. So that sounds very fancy. That's their aim. So I'm going to try and summarize exactly what it is they do. They provide templates, designs, resources from social media posts to presentations to letters, to things actually designed for sort of moving social media. They do videos, anything you can think of. They can do your logo if you want. If you can create a logo for yourself, and basically they just provide most of that stuff for free, or at least a good portion of it for free. All you have to do is create an account with them. Once you have it, you can make anything you want. And I'm going to show you something on the next slide. So you see on the right, this is the leaflet I created in Canva to promote the organizer session. So this might have been what you saw that triggered you to sign up for this session. I made that in Canva. I make most of the attractive sort of images, the Heritage Open Days ones. I use some of the photos that people have sent me to promote the festival. And I put that into Canva, and I create little headings for the mailing list. So when you see the mailing list, you'll see a heading at the top. I do that in Canva. and this is a free account, so you know, I don't have the paid account. I could do, but I find that the free one is sufficient. I recommend everyone have a look at this because it's great fun. It's great fun to do. You can click and drag, you can move stuff around. It has loads of templates, and it has a load of resources as well. So what you'll see on the screen in front of you in that middle picture there, where it's got templates, uploads, photos, elements. On the elements tab, it has a load of, does anyone remember clip art from back in the day with Word? I think Word still has clip art, but I think it's like a paid service now. Elements is essentially like clip art, only some of them are animated as well. It means you can add effects. It means that you can add pictures. Now, Elements is the one that's most restricted by the free, but there's always, I've not come across a search yet where I've searched for something where it's had less than 5 things for you to use. So yeah, I genuinely, I think this is brilliant. If you take nothing else away today, Canva, brilliant. Try it out, have a go with it. You can see on there that I've listed some prices. If you wanted to, you could upgrade to Pro, which is £100 a year, so it works out something like, is it £8, £8.99 a month to go Pro. And what that does is unlocks even more design types and also gives you a brand kit. So if you're intent on doing your own design work, it can help you actually create your own brand for that. So, you know, you can create your own logo, you can create branded bits and pieces. But it's just an idea. It's just something if you wanted to, but obviously I appreciate that £100 a year is still quite expensive. It also gives you access to stock photos, which is quite useful. So I am quite lucky because we get obviously a lot of photos sent in for heritage linkages, so I'm able to use my own photos. With a free account, there is no restriction on using your own photos. If you upgrade to Pro, they've got thousands of photos you can use that aren't, you know, they don't have the stock image or anything on the stock watermark or anything on them, that they're just there for you to use. So that's an idea. And you can also this will tie into the next thing. If you got the Pro account, it will also tie into your social media account, so you can use it to manage your social media if you wish to, but we'll come on to that in a minute. If you're a non-for-profit, in theory, I've had a look into it. They do offer free services, but you have to provide all of the, so they'll offer you a Pro account for free. You'll have to apply for it though, and you have to provide them with the relevant paperwork. So things showing your charitable status and things like that. So, and I don't think it's guaranteed. They look at your turnover and this, that, and the other. So if you wanted to, if you're really keen on it, and you have a little bit of time, maybe apply for it and then you get it for free anyway. So that's just an idea with that one. So I'll stop on Canva because Canva is the one I was mostly going on about, so I do apologise. Second one, Buffer. So this is a different site, because what Buffer is and you can get a free account for it, it's a scheduling assistant for your social media account. So we just talked that Canva can do that as part of your paid account. Buffer will do it for free. It connects to your social media platforms and it will let you schedule posts in advance, so you can appear to have an active social media presence without having to be glued to it 24/7. Now, it's worth noting that nowadays you can do scheduling on most social media sites individually. So Facebook has a platform where you can schedule things. Twitter has a platform where you can schedule things. But the nice thing about Buffer is if you're trying to say the same thing across your different social media streams, it puts it all into one place, and it just, you can see it a bit easier. The idea is, because you can do it all at once, it's meant to save you time, and you can see everything at once as well. So it's just another option of something you can do if you're setting up multiple social media streams. The cost of it is completely free, and the free version lets you connect a profile from each network, one from Facebook, one from Twitter, etc., etc., and it will allow you to schedule ahead 10 posts for each network. So if we talked about, if you do 3 a week, that obviously covers you for 3 weeks. If you do 3 a day, then it's 3 days, that kind of thing. It lets you essentially stay ahead, and you can tweak things and change things or add things if you want to. If you're really into your social media, you can also have a look at upgrading to the Pro version, which is £15 a month. That lets you manage up to 8 different channels, and it will let you schedule up to 100 posts in advance. So good luck with that one though, because you've still got to write them. So if you're writing 100 posts per stream, you're looking up to 800 posts in advance there. If you are really into this and you do want to go pro, if you are a not-for-profit, if you're a charity, knock 50% off the price. That's a set thing. You only have to show them evidence. You don't have to apply for it. You just have to attach a copy of your charitable status. So you can do that using your charity number and things like that. So just another option if you're doing more with social media. And lastly, WordPress. Now, we talked earlier about you setting up a website for your organization. WordPress is still, I believe, the most popular website builder. And they've done an awful lot recently to redesign it to try and make it user-friendly. And this comes back to what I was saying before, that it's no longer, websites aren't anything to be afraid of anymore. You don't need a degree to do them. You don't need to have experience in web building and things like that. Nowadays, they're built to be more or less click and drag. So that they're quite easy to use. Our website, Heritage Lincolnshire, is, though we also do have some IT help to do some really fancy things. But if you're just looking for a nice looking, professional, simple website, you can actually do most of that for free. Now, it's designed, as I say, to try and help you as much as it can. You'll find that it has inbuilt templates, layouts, and an easy to use help guide. And the nice thing about it is, as I say, is the fact that you can actually do it for free. If you do want to upgrade, so the only restriction with the free account is you have to bear in mind that they are not a charity. So they have to make their money back somehow. And the way WordPress do that is they give you lots of sort of opportunities to make your own website, but they will host adverts because that's how they sort of recap their money. They basically, whatever you do on your page, you will probably have an advert at the bottom of it, and it'll be somebody who's paid WordPress to advertise for them. So it might not be anything to do with your site. It'll just be an advert. So obviously it won't be anything inappropriate. You don't have to worry about it advertising adult sites or anything like that, but it could be anything from eBay to Next to, I don't know, Alton Towers, something like that. And you can't, if you're not paying for your account, you cannot do anything about that. It will be on there because that's how they make their money. If you've got a bit of money to spend towards it, you can see on there that the personal account, the one that's £3, that's the basic level. What that does is it removes ads, so there's no ads. And also it lets you collect payments as well if you wanted to. So if you want to take donations, that facility is engaged. And also it tends to, I believe they also guarantee your domain for the year. And what we mean by domain is your website name. If you have a free website and you're not paying for a domain, it means that anyone in theory could take that domain name. So, for instance, our domain is heritagelincolnshire.org. If we didn't pay for it, somebody else could pay for it and essentially take that from us. They could take that, and whenever somebody typed in heritagelincolnshire.org, they could go to, I don't know, some sort of a Chinese shipping company, whatever. So that's something to be aware of. But you know, if you're only small, you can try it for free, and if you know, you want to look at upgrading, you can do, and that just guarantees a bit more. You can see that you've got premium, business, and e-commerce. Again, it will all very much depend on how much you're hosting on your website, what you want to do with it, things like that. But you know, the £3 one isn't a bad one if you're quite a small organization. So yes, and that pretty much brings us to the end of the presentation. So I know I've got some questions in chat, so I'll come to that now. But I will close this down and just take questions.